We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Anthony Treash back with me here on 2-for-1 Drafts. Mike Renner officially diagnosed with COVID-19, mild symptoms. He's going to recover, but until then, it's going to be me and you on the podcast. We'll do the Monday version and the Wednesday episode. Tony, how you living?
Pretty good, yeah. T's and P's to Mike Renner. Hopefully he recovers nicely. But yeah, here with you with the stash. You know, we probably walked.
The stash is here.
I know. If we walked down the street, people would probably think you're my father.
Yeah, I mean, the stash was an interesting play by me. I don't love it, but I think I'm going to ride with it. I'm going to ride with it. It gives me new confidence here. The weekend, I said, you know what? Shaving for Mustache November. We got the mustache out here on the YouTube channel. The other thing I want to mention, weekend, I got a good story for you. Went on a tennis date, which is the first time I've ever done a little first date tennis date. She said, let's play tennis. She played tennis in college. I was like, dude, you know what? I'm in. She ends up whooping me for 3 sets. It was an absolute slaughter. Like, honestly, I'd never played tennis before, really, and I was getting dogged. And then at the end, after what I thought was a fun time, said she doesn't want to hang out with me anymore because I joke too much. Sorry, I was making jokes while getting wrecked in tennis. Have you been on a tennis date before or a sport date before? It was fun, but at the same time, I don't know if I'll do it again.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever would do that. But that's a bold strategy. I mean, I would have investigated to make sure she wasn't like played in college or something like that.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't want to lose. But I like the humor. I like the funny. I wish I had a good story like that over the weekend, but I kind of took her easy. It was too many tanked weekends that I needed one off.
If there's anything to take from it, is you just can't win them all. I know that best. You can't win them all in this league. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the college football team of the week. If you guys don't know, Anthony Treash, nicknamed Tony, which the nickname Tony has been morphed into Kadarius Tony, and then now some people just call you Kadarius, and then now they just call you KD. Kadarius Tony being the Florida wide receiver. It's an interesting transgression of how the nickname has gone, but I'll just call you Tony for today. You write the college football team of the week and the NFL team of the week. Give me some surprises on the college football team of the week, some guys that really stood out this past week.
Yeah, I never thought in my life that I would react to the name Kadarius like it's me, but here we are. But I enjoy it. Matt Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss, he was probably, if you would have said beforehand, this guy's going to make the team of the week and he's going to perhaps break a record for PFF College for the best single game we've ever had, I would have said you're crazy, because 2 weeks ago, he threw 6 interceptions. It was one of the worst football games I've ever seen, from him against Arkansas. And here he is, just, lit up the field. So that was, kind of good to see. But the wide receiver position, this one was a tough one to decide because there was a lot of top performers. Same with quarterback. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. But Devonta Smith, no Jalen Waddle. The guy tore it up as always. He's doing everything that we want him to do, for his draft stock. He's really helping himself there. And Elijah Moore, which we'll get to a little bit later, but this game was different than past Elijah Moore, very different. And then Ricky White, true freshman of the week, had a day up there at Michigan State in their upset win. But yeah, those were kind of the notables. But your Aztecs, it was 3 a.m. Sunday morning. I'm sitting there grinding out Mountain West football, and I'm watching this San Diego State offensive line, best offensive line of the week. That's what we have. You have 3 of your Aztecs on the offensive line.
Our Aztecs, yes. Okay? Our Aztecs. The left tackle, left guard, and right tackle on the college football team of the week are all San Diego State Aztecs. So you can check out the full list on PFF.com. Some other notables, Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, Travis Etienne of Clemson. Defensively, mentioned some names here as well. Patrick Surtain of Alabama, but also Malachi Moore, who look in and of itself a future Bama defensive back that people are going to be high on, maybe a top 50 pick here in the future. Really big fan of what he put out this past week. Pivoting to the NFL team of the week, Trayvon Diggs made the list. There's a couple other notables. Talk to me about the NFL team of the week.
Yeah, we're going to get to Trayvon Diggs later on. I have a thought on him, but DK Metcalf, he's looking like, I was trying to comb through all the top wide receivers in the NFL, and I was like, is he a top 10 guy? But I'm deciding he's a top 5 wide receiver. I really do think he's that much of a difference maker. And he kind of proved that this past week. But yeah, that was kind of my biggest guy right there. DK Metcalf on the offensive side of the ball. Really like Bryce Callahan, not a rookie, a little bit of a veteran there, but I think he's one of the more underrated players in the NFL. What he does in the slot for the Denver Broncos, what he used to do for the Chicago Bears. But yeah, those were probably my top two guys there outside of, of course, the notables, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Donald.
Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Donald will probably make it every single week. Those guys consistently grade well. I was impressed with Trayvon Diggs, even though, the 2 interceptions are great, and those are great for, EPA allowed, all that type of stuff, passer rating when targeted, but you still see the same concerns. Like, it wasn't a new Trayvon Diggs. It was a new Elijah Moore, the Ole Miss wide receiver. It was not a new Trayvon Diggs, the guy that still struggled in single coverage, still getting beat over the top. Even on that touchdown, I feel like the wide receiver kind of gave up, or the interception, I apologize. Wide receiver kind of gave up on the play. He kind of stayed to it and got the pick, which is a great play in itself. But still, you're not seeing him be this lockdown type that is limiting separation, which I think is up there with the most important things. Limiting separation at the cornerback position, regardless of when you're targeted, when you're targeted in the end zone, because there's other stats that can kind of cloud how talented a cornerback is. But limiting separation, specifically in single coverage, is super important. And Trayvon Diggs just hasn't been that guy. All right, I want to jump into now the college football review, because there's a lot of notable names. And let's start with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, for those who don't know, is the Ole Miss wide receiver who plays majority of the slot, plays a lot of slot receiver for them, but also was moved outside a little bit. This past week, man, looked good. I put in here 2 slant and goes that were awesome. This guy's creating separation with the best of them. Ran 2 saucy slot fades. One was underthrown. They didn't connect on that one, but the other one, they end up catching the touchdown. Quicker than fast. I don't think he's like a flyer, but he can move. He moves in and out of his breaks really well. Good ball skills as well. Strong hands for a smaller receiver. Catches everything thrown his way. Initially, when Elijah Moore was dominating in yards per out run, dominating in PFF receiving grade, and you watch the tape, wasn't super impressed. You could tell a lot of his production was schemed. But now, this past week, I turned the corner a little bit. I'm getting excited.
Yeah, before, every single time I wrote something about Elijah Moore, I'd always say like Lane Kiffin and Elijah Moore, because that's essentially what those stats were. But this week, completely different Elijah Moore. I liked him last year. He was kind of tough to bring down after the catch. I like that. But this time around, he actually ran some crisp routes. There was a nice little secondary foot fire release that got me excited.
Yes.
It made me scream there for a little bit. But yeah, those sluggos too. This was, it came on the slants, those screens every other week before this, but this week it was a little bit different. The Ole Miss offense looked different. I don't know what they almost had Mike's secret sauce stuff or whatever before the game, because all of these guys just played out of their minds.
92.5 PFF grade for Elijah Moore against Vanderbilt, the 5'9", 185-pound receiver, 14 of 15, so 14 receptions on 15 targets for 238 and 3 touchdowns. Vanderbilt, I will say this too, the defense is bad. The cornerbacks are bad. They were getting beat on the same routes on back-to-back plays. Like, it was an ugly look, and these grades obviously aren't opponent adjusted, but I still think he put on display, third-year receiver for Ole Miss. Moving down the list here, it's primarily offense, by the way. You can talk a little Diami Brown, Tylan Wallace, Kyle Pitts, only a couple defensive players we'll mention, but jumping into Diami Brown, the UNC wide receiver, bigger body than Elijah Moore, kind of a big body type. I go into Diami Brown, I see a lot of contested catches on his tape, but this past week, creating separation on non-double moves. That's another thing you really like to look for in bigger receivers. Can you create separation on a deep out? Can you create separation on a comeback, on a hitch? And you saw that this past week for Diami. I was impressed overall with his play.
Yeah, I still think I would take Daz Newsome over Diami Brown, even though Diami Brown's having the better season. They both kind of got off to slow starts because the North Carolina offense, I don't know what happened there, but Phil Longo, Mac Brown, they had this thing very conservative right out the gate. It wasn't until that second half of that Florida State game, and ever since, we've seen the North Carolina offense that we all thought we would see, the aggressive approach from Sam Howell. You have 2 great deep threats in Diami Brown, who, that was my biggest thing with him, is he's great in contested situations. He was 11th in contested catch rate last year, but I still liked Daz Newsome a little bit more. I thought he was better at creating separation, but
more
you're
juice.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He had a nice little rocker step that we saw a lot last year. But yeah, it was an interesting day, and I'm kind of curious to, why is Daz Newsome just being completely left out?
I think there's a lot of question marks with this North Carolina offense. We thought Sam Howell was going to take a significant step forward. The offense was conservative to start. Now they're kind of feeding Diami Brown. He's got 53 targets already this year. Diami Brown has 53 targets through 6 games. He had 11 receptions on 13 targets for 240 and 3 touchdowns this past week against Virginia. I was overall impressed. The last catch was probably the most impressive, where he goes up in contested catch situation and just comes down, I think, through DPI. That was one where I was like, man, this guy can body guys at 6'1", 185, but also I thought the separation was good. He had a stutter and go early in the game where he created separation. I thought pacing is really important. When you're not like a true burner, he comes out of the release a little bit slower. You can kind of tell it's at 60%, little stutter, and then turns on the jets, creates separations deep down the field. I thought his cuts were sharp, all of that stuff. Sam Howell, though, I will say, I put this in my notes as well. Sam Howell just chucks it to the kid. He sees him in one-on-one. I stay on him the entire way and just throws it up jump ball situations for Diami Brown. Another receiver. This is we got like 3 or 4 more on this list. Devontae Smith. I knew he was going to step up big with Jalen Waddle going down with injury. I think had 16 targets in this game, somewhere around there. I think he has more than enough speed to get open deep, separate deep. And I know people have concerns about his body type. I think he's 180 pounds or even under and not a 4.4 type. He might break a 4.4, but he's probably going to land in that 4.5 range. But I think he has enough speed to get open deep, can create separation on a vertical route tree, consistent as hell. We talked to Benjamin Solak about this in the interview, which we'll get to later in the pod. But the more and more I watch his tape, the consistency, all of that is super important to me. And I think Devontae Smith, second round, because he doesn't have the tools of another receiver, like the other receivers in this class, like Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Rondo Moore. I just think it's just too much. You're overthinking it at that point. Turn on the tape. I think this guy's a top 32 player.
Oh, I agree. I think he's a top 15 player. I've been extremely high on Devonta Smith, and I never had too much concerns with his speed. It was more of just kind of, the size issue, but I'm kind of looking beyond that at that point. I don't think that's that big of an issue because he's doing everything else at the position at a very high level. His release package, ball skills, you name it, it's been phenomenal. He's a clear cut without Jamar Chase, no Jalen Waddle. He's a clear cut best wide receiver in college football this year. And too with Mac Jones, I think some people are arguing that they're kind of on both sides of the ball there, that one's, kind of leaning on the other. Devonta Smith's having all the success because of Mac Jones, or Mac Jones having all the success because of him. But I don't think that's the case. I think these two guys are just, they're pretty damn good, at what they do. And so, I think that's the best quarterback wide receiver connection in college football right now. I would still clearly have Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields over Mac Jones, just in general. But, it's a pretty lethal Alabama offense they have cooking down there in Tuscaloosa.
11 receptions from 15 targets against Mississippi State for 203 and 4 touchdowns. 3 forced missed tackles after the catch as well. I didn't even bring up the ball skills in my rant on Devontae Smith. I love his ball skills. Catches everything thrown his way. Good in contested catch situations. Strong hands. Everything. You name it. The guy's got it. I'm a huge fan. All right. Jumping to, I think, 4 more wide receivers on this list. It was a big week for receivers, and then we'll jump to some other positions. But Tylan Wallace. I have not been a big Tylan Wallace guy. I think a lot of his production is schemed, whether it's double moves or off coverage or going against Big 12 disastrous cornerbacks. But this past week, similar to Elijah Moore, it was one of the better games I've seen in his career, not just the season, in his career. I think he beat on some really bad Texas defensive backs. These guys look like they're running through mud at a certain point, but he's beating them in single coverage, drew multiple DPIs, came down with a handful of contested catches. Tylan Wallace moved up for me this past week. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't think he moved up because I think I was already pretty high on Tylan Wallace.
Flex on me, son.
I liked what he did back in 2018. They used him, pretty much solely on the vertical route tree, and then they started pumping him some screens last year. I really liked what he showed after the catch because that was kind of the question mark before he tore his ACL, of course. And then this year, the guy's just winning those contested battles downfield. He's 8 for 12 on contested targets over 10 yards downfield.
Wow.
That's a pretty ridiculous
they chuck
rate.
it up to him too, similar to Diami Brown. It's 11 receptions from 14 targets in this game, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, an 87.1 PFF grade. This was quite the week for him.
Yeah, he can win those contested battles, but he can blow past some defensive backs. And I think the biggest concern was, like you said, the Big 12 defenses. That's the biggest concern. Arguably, the best defense in the Big 12 is on his own team in Oklahoma State. West Virginia is up. They're pretty good. But outside of those two, it's a pretty significant drop-off.
Jumping to Chris Ottman-Bell, wide receiver for Minnesota, wears number 7, 6'1", 215. This past week, in a career-high 85.7 PFF grade on just 5 targets, 4 receptions, 112 yards, and a TD. A lot of people came out of this game, oh, wow, Chris Ottman-Bell, putting him on the list. This is another guy and to kind of consider in this what is a good receiving class. I didn't come away as impressed. He had 2 nice double moves that still ended up being contested targets. He wasn't burning. He can't fly by any means. People were still catching up to him. Didn't create a ton of separation outside of the slant he had from the slot. I didn't see an overly fast receiver, an overly athletic receiver. I saw a guy that was good in a handful of contested catch situations that went for touchdowns. I don't know if I'm too low on Ottman-Bell after this game. A lot of people highlight him as this breakout candidate. What was your opinion of this past week?
I'm right there with you. I love PJ Fleck. I think I mean, he breeds route runners. I think he's one of the best coaches for wide receivers.
Tyler Johnson, Rashad Bateman, Ottman Bell,
Corey Davis.
Corey Davis.
So I will watch Chris Ottman-Bell, and I will continue to monitor him, but I'm not going to get too excited yet.
Don't get excited.
Yeah, I'm not going to get excited. There was nothing about that game where I was, excited, so I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to keep an eye on him. I wasn't, too impressed with him, before this game. So I'm not sold yet, but I'm going to keep an eye on him.
All right. You know who did get me excited? Kadarius Toney. Nicknamed after who you're nicknamed after. Kadarius Toney, number 1 for the Florida Gators, is a freakish athlete. This guy has short area quickness and burst and acceleration that just shows up on tape on every route this guy runs. Even when, because everyone loves his yards after the catch ability, and he's averaging 8.2 yards after the catch per reception so far this year, has forced 11 missed tackles already on 22 receptions. I get it. Great after the catch, but watch this guy before the catch. Create separation with ease on the route tree that they ask him to do is very gadgety, for lack of a better term, but still there's this route that they run. So you get pre-snap motion, looks like a classic flat route coming from the receiver when he's like kind of taking advantage of that momentum on a pre-snap motion. Just one cut, leaves Missouri number 1 in the dust and goes for a touchdown like that. Those movement skills are rare. I think his usage is still low, only 6 targets, 4 receptions for 60 yards and 2 TDs in this game. But bump the volume up from a target perspective and let him run a normal route tree. Like, he doesn't have to be a gadget player for you. I think Toney can be like a legit wide receiver in this class.
I think he is a legit wide receiver in this class. And, I think he's, vastly improved on his route running for sure. I mean, you mentioned some of the numbers from this year. I mean, over the last 2 years, he has caught 32 passes, 23 broken tackles, averaging nearly 12 yards after the catch. You just put the ball in this guy's hands and let him go to work. I love Kadarius Toney. I can't move like him. We may share the same name, but I wish I could, because not many humans can evade tackles the way he does. That one, right? It looked like they were going to rip his head off, and he somehow came out of it on that one touchdown this past weekend. I mean, it was incredible. So I think he is a legit wide receiver in this class. He's not top 100 in our big board, but I think by the end of the season, once it comes, March, April, that guy's going to be in there. At least I hope he is.
Definitely encourage everyone to check out the big board on PFF.com, by the way. Mike Renner recently updated it with the top 100, and it has that. You can drop down to see more analysis on each player. There's 3-year grades in there, 2018, 2019, and 2020 at the collegiate level. Encourage you guys to check that out on PFF.com. One more receiver. I know it's been a receiver-loaded podcast, but David Bell, the Purdue wide receiver for that kind of had a good game this past week. I saw some people saying he's better than Rondale Moore. I kind of wanted to throw my computer out the window. I refuse, by the way. I'm not middling, sitting on a fence here. Rondale Moore is a better receiver than David Bell, hands down. I know David Bell had a lot of production in 2019, and even this past week, 9 receptions on 10 targets for 122 and a touchdown. But in my notes, first few things I mentioned, so much off coverage. Even on the deep ball that he had early, it was off coverage, and the DB played the ball terribly. Off coverage slant, off coverage crosser, off coverage crosser. I'm not going to look at production and be excited about it with what he had in the first half. After that, you saw that the team they were going against play a lot more man coverage and going against press. Very impressive hitch route for him, and then there was a go route towards the end that I thought was good. Still, bodied on a slant, drew a DPI late that I think was questionable. I'm interested to see what people think about David Bell moving forward. But this game, similar to Ottman Bell, more hype than actual meat and potatoes in terms of like moving his stock.
I think he's kind of like a glorified Seth Williams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's not going to generate separation, but I think if you throw him one downfield, with his body control, I mean, that was his bread and butter last year. The Purdue quarterback situation with Jack Plummer and Aiden O'Connell last year wasn't all that great, still not all that great. And he snagged a lot of off-target inaccurate balls. And he's a good complementary piece to Rondale Moore. I have no idea if those people were being serious. I hope they were joking, because Rondale Moore is a significantly better wide receiver than David Bell. But I will say he's looking stronger at the catch point he is than this year than he was last year as a true freshman. So that was kind of the one thing I was looking forward to. But I think he's a good complementary piece. Definitely not better than Rondale Moore. But if Purdue actually had a quarterback and Rondale Moore is on the field with David Bell, I think that would be a very good offense.
Very good. Very good Purdue. They don't hear that a lot there in Purdue.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Since the days of Drew Brees.
A couple more names we'll mention, all on the defensive side of the ball. Don't have to dive into it deep, but I thought Patrick Surtain and Dylan Moses, the 2 Alabama defensive players, played well this past week. That's good tape to turn on for both of those guys. But the name I want to get in detail is not a phrase, in depth, Maybe that's not a phrase either. Shaun Wade of Ohio State, a guy that I wrote about entering this year when it was originally expected that he was not going to play another down at Ohio State due to COVID-19 impacting the Big Ten season. He's playing shadow coverage at outside corner. And this past week against Jahan Dotson, third-year player for Penn State, did not look good. It was an ugly performance. We talked about it with Benjamin Solak at the end, and he's a big Shaun Wade fan, so I encourage you to listen to that. But my thought was, toasted a handful of times where Jahan Dotson was creating clear separation from press. Everyone wants to bring up the catch at the end where he had like kind of 3 fingers on it, contested catch. I thought that was OPI. I'm throwing that one out the window. I don't really care about that one. The one I do care about, or the routes I do care about, is where Dotson is beating him in press for separation on slants and inside routes. That is what concerned me with Wade. He also wasn't physical. I know you want to talk about that.
Yeah, and like last year, that was the best part, was how physical he was. The press technique, you didn't see a lot of it in the slot, of course, but it was a little suspect. We weren't really sure about that. We thought he had the physical tools to succeed out there, but I am very concerned with Shaun Wade after this one. I mean, he allowed 6 catches on 8 targets of 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. The other 4 catches were first downs to Jahan Dotson. No plays on the ball. And you mentioned it. He really wasn't all that physical, and he really should have been because he's a lot bigger than Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
He was, 5'11".
He's got the skills to be physical. He's got the recovery speed, all that stuff.
Exactly. And, the press technique was it was not all the way there. And I know, when you're transitioning from the slot to the outside and you have that impacted offseason, that obviously is going to play a part. And I don't think he's going to be, all of a sudden like, oh, he's falling out down draft boards after this one. I think he can work his way back, but this is a big red flag, and he can't afford to have another one of these days.
I mean, no single game is going to like completely dumpster fire a prospect's thing, but it's a body of work. And if you see Jahan Dotson and other outside receivers beating him to a pulp like this game, I think you have to see it as a concern. I mean, even Solak brings up later in the podcast on that interview is, there is a chance that if you see more tape like this, that he's more considered a move kind of chess piece playing in the slot and not so much outside corner. However, the tail of the tape really is the combine and outside corners, receiver, edge defender. You need to see 3-cone. You need to see 40. You need athletes at those positions if you're going to draft them in the first round. The combine will be big.
And there's nothing wrong with just being a slot corner. I mean, it is a very underappreciated position on the defensive side of the ball. Very underpaid, but it's still right there. One of the most valuable positions. I mean,
slot corners start in the NFL. That's not even a take anymore. That's exactly what's happening. Yeah. I think only 3 teams don't play 11 or smaller personnels more than 50% of snaps. Like everyone's playing 3 wide receiver sets, 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. And even the teams that are playing 12 have receivers at tight end. Guys that are legit creating separation and running legitimate routes. All right, we're going to pivot to the NFL now. Talk a little NFL action, some rookies that performed well this past week. I got to bring them up. I turn on the tape every single week because he's a stud. Michael Onwenu, rookie offensive lineman. I can't say guard or tackle. Rookie offensive lineman for the New England Patriots is a machine. He played right tackle this past week due to injuries. Has played guard most of the season. Has played 3 positions along the offensive line. And this past at right tackle, played extremely well. Bodied kids. Had a double pancake block on when he was getting pulled outside. It looked really good, man. I mean, gave up, I think, 1 pressure on a stunt or whatever it was. I really do like Michael Onwenu. I think he's lost weight, and that was the biggest concern. He was a big dude coming out of Mississippi State or whatever it was. I think it was Mississippi State. Michigan. Big dude coming out of Michigan. And he looks sloppy because of it. He's just fat. I mean, he's just big. And he's lost some weight, and now his feet look better. And honestly, best rookie offensive lineman, up there with some of the best young offensive linemen in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many rookies. Right now, as we enter into week 9, that I'm confident in saying, this is going to be, he's going to be a starter in the NFL, quality starter, a very good player that you want to keep on your team. I'm confident in Michael Onwenu was saying that because of, that versatility and staying good. His worst plays so far leading up to this point were when he was in pass protection at right tackle. But this week, he looked a lot better in that. He was right around the top 10, close to it, among all right tackles and pass block grade this past week. I'm really optimistic in his playing future, and he's going to be, people aren't going to recognize him as the biggest steal of the draft. You're probably going to get someone in that 2nd, 3rd round, some flashy skill position player. But I think he is going to be the biggest steal in the draft, down the road.
Biggest steal in the draft.
Yes.
I like that call. Another offensive lineman I'll bring up who was starting at right guard this past week for the Minnesota Vikings, Ezra Cleveland. I'll say this first, far and away better than Drew Samia, and it's not close. And I still think, so he graded well this past week. He had a couple second-level blocks, sprung Dalvin Cook loose a couple of times, and wasn't an atrocity in pass protection, which is a breath of fresh air for any Vikings fan that's been watching the right guard position so far this season. But I will say this, as good as he looked, I still think he should definitely be the starter for as long as he's healthy. Strength is still a concern. And when you get kicked inside that phone booth and you start going against the big uglies, that is where you start to see him get kind of out-muscled by a Lancaster or something, or Dean Lowry or whoever was down there for Green Bay. I think he needs to get stronger. He needs to eat a lot more food. But for how young he is and where he's playing guard after playing tackle at Boise State, I think this is an overall solid performance for Ezra Cleveland, one of which I think keeps him as the starter for as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should because, I mean, Drew Samia is not that good. But, I mean, Ezra Cleveland, I'm still going back to that week 6 against Atlanta because that was a very concerning. He saw way more pass blocking opportunities in that one. 43 pass block snaps that game, just 18 this past week. 27.5 pass block grade. That, you know, that's what's kind of keeping me, you know, this was a good performance. I will agree. This was a great performance from him, but I'm still going to, I'm going to be cautious with my words on Ezra Cleveland, you know, with my confidence in him moving forward.
We woke up this morning, therefore we have to have the debate, Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert. It seems like every day we have to talk about it. Every single week you have to bring up, is Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert playing better? And I said on the podcast last week, I thought Justin Herbert is having the better season so far. He graded better. Joe Burrow has taken over. This past week looked very, very good against what I think is a good Tennessee Titans defense. I mean, there's definitely some concerns here and there, but I think the Tennessee Titans defense isn't a slouch, especially going against a Bengals offensive line that was without 4 starters. Jonah Williams didn't play in this game. Michael Jordan didn't play in this game. Bobby Hart, Trey Hopkins. They were without 4 starters along the offensive line. And Joe Burrow, under pressure and when kept clean, still looked very good. Had the better week this past week. I think of all rookie quarterbacks so far this year, the 4 best single-graded games are Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow, and then Justin Herbert. Am I wrong to think Justin Herbert's still playing well or better than Joe Burrow? Where are you at right now in this debate?
Yes, I do think that. I mean, he looked like Joe Cool. He looked like LSU Joe Burrow this past week with the way he maneuvered the pocket. I mean, it was reminiscent of some of the throws that we all fell in love with.
It looks like LSU Joe Burrow. This was
exactly.
it.
Exactly. This is, and I think, you know, the way he's playing right now, he has an 86.3 PFF passing grade when kept clean. Justin Herbert, 77.1, which it's good compared to what we've seen in the past from other rookies, but I'm taking Joe Burrow 10 times out of 10 right now. If you said you have one quarterback, you need to win a game, I'm picking Joe Burrow over Justin Herbert. And, you know, Justin Herbert has those highlight reel throws, but I'm going throw for throw, and Joe Burrow's getting me throw for throw consistency.
I mean, Steve, I think, said it best on the NFL podcast, and I listened to that this morning. Joe Burrow has the steak. Justin Herbert has the sizzle. He has the high end, the big plays that I think everyone has a lot of people excited about Justin Herbert. But Joe Burrow, while he doesn't have the sizzle, so to speak, this deep ball that really looks all that great, he's still way more consistent than Justin Herbert is so far. And even in that stuff, the 0 to 19-yard throws, where Joe Burrow is a top 3 graded passer, is much more stable than where Justin Herbert is grading well, which is third downs, under pressure, deep down the field. That is just not as stable as being as accurate and as consistent as Joe Burrow has been from 0 to 19 yards. It's a toss-up for me now. I think they're both grading similarly, but if you had, so my take on Justin Herbert was that he was having a better rookie season. But if you take the take to who do you feel more confident about going into next year and the year after that, I think it has to be Joe Burrow. He's grading better in the more stable areas of the game. All right. 2 receivers I'll bring up, T. Higgins and Brandon Aiyuk. T. Higgins is one of Joe Burrow's favorite targets. He loves throwing to that guy. I think he does a lot of good things on the scramble drill. When Joe Burrow is kind of scrambling out, T. Higgins does a really good job of working back to the football. Still not creating a ton of separation, but the hands, the contested catches, I think are impressive. Brandon Aiyuk, on the other hand, the Arizona State receiver who now plays for the San Francisco 49ers, I was not super high on Aiyuk coming out. Explosive, but I thought very raw as a route runner. We'll see how it develops. He looked good against Seattle this past week. I think Brandon Aiyuk is tape I'm going to turn back on and be happy about if I'm the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, you know, with T. Higgins, he's never going to be a guy that creates separation. That's just not going to be him. He's going to win in tight coverage. In this past week, he finally won in tight coverage consistently. You know, going back, you know, to those previous 7 weeks, that's where he kind of struggled. And there was kind of there was a few times where I kind of thought he was getting pushed around when he shouldn't have. But this time, he had 3 contested catches. I was really high on T. Higgins because of that and his, you know, top-notch ball skills and, you know, the highlight reel throws. I always go back, you know, I forget what game it was with the sideline, the one-hander. I mean, it should have been an incomplete pass. I think T. Higgins was the only, you know, wide receiver in college football that could have ever caught that kind of ball. You know, I think that's the kind of receiver they're going to get from here on out. Brandon Aiyuk, Yeah, this guy, I know he was probably, is he your top rookie of the week? And you're hyping him up a lot.
I like Brandon Aiyuk, man. I think he looked really good against Seattle. He was creating separation against single coverage concepts. There was some off coverage there. It looked very good after the catch. I think the speed, it stands out when you're a rookie and you look on par, if not better, from a speed and athleticism perspective than the guys you're going against. And Seattle doesn't have like world-class defensive backs, especially with Jamal Adams out. But I still thought it was really impressive how much he stood out on the football field. I definitely encourage you guys to go back and when Game Pass eventually loads it up, watch Brandon Aiyuk's All 22 because it looks good. One more offensive player, and then I kind of want to touch on just an overall, like what's been just an underwhelming defensive rookie class. I think largely because of the abbreviated offseason, no preseason. Playing defense in the NFL is hard. Playing defense as a rookie is even harder. And then you throw in the fact that they don't have preseason games, made things all more difficult. But before we get there, J.K. Dobbins. He's not getting the lion's share of touches, even with Mark Ingram out. Gus Edwards, Gus Bus is running the rock there. But J.K. Dobbins, when given the football, looks awesome. His force miss tackle ability, his explosiveness, his acceleration. I think the vision is good as well. What's been your opinion of Dobbins? He's one of my favorite rookie running backs right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's been producing at an unreal level right now for a rookie. As you said, evading tackles, and on the few catches he will have, you see it there too. He has 12 broken tackles on 40 carries this year. And I think the biggest takeaway, he has 8 explosive runs of 10 or more yards on 40 carries. I mean, that is a really impressive rate, whether, you're a 5-year veteran or if you're a rookie. So, I mean, I'm really, I wish he would get, and Benjamin Solak, he mentions this a lot too. He wants J.K. Dobbins to get the ball. I want him to get the ball too, because I think all right, running backs don't really matter that much, but he's just one of those, I know you like this saying, fun guys to watch.
Yeah, he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
With Dobbins, I mean, with the running backs don't matter conversation, I was actually talking to Eric Eager during the game last night, the data scientist here at PFF, a really smart dude. I encourage you to follow him, PFF_Eric. Talking about running backs don't matter. This season has been very much evidence of that, with James Robinson having success, Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly having success, with Austin Eckler out, Mike Davis of Carolina. But I don't think the conversation has been that loud on Twitter. People aren't like screaming every time James Robinson scores or screaming when Tony Pollard spells Ezekiel Elliott well. But what I think the take is, and I'm interested in your take on this, all of the running backs in the NFL are very good. Like, it's hard to be bad at the position if you're an athlete and drafted to play running back in the NFL. Who, with that take said, is the worst running back in the NFL, getting 10 carries a game on average?
Oh.
And why is it Todd Gurley? I think Todd Gurley is playing not even as good a football as Brian Hill, the former Wyoming running back. I don't think Adrian Peterson's playing all that well. Frank Gore is obviously not super talented. The Le'Veon Bell revenge tour resulted in 1 point yards per carry. The older backs are those ones that you're not seeing the same juice from in the NFL, while these younger guys, regardless of who the name may be, James Robinson, Joshua Kelly, Justin Jackson, they're the ones who are having success right now. Maybe it's not Todd Gurley for you. Who's the worst running back in the NFL?
I think this year we have to go with Zeke.
Zeke?
I think
my
Zeke.
goodness.
I think it's Zeke, and I'm probably going to get ridiculed for that. But, I mean, look at the 5 fumbles. He's averaging.
Fumbles are big, too.
Exactly. I mean, he's not producing explosive runs. And obviously, everyone will point, the offensive line's been bad. That's the essential, key to running back success. So,
yeah.
But he has not been doing his fair share. Like with running backs don't matter. It's a little bit different at the college level too, because we hype up Travis Etienne, and he's high on a lot of our player rankings. He's one of the better players in college football, you hear us say, because the talent discrepancy is so massive. Yes. When you have a freak like
the
Travis
athleticism
Etienne.
Discrepancy, he's rare. He looks rare on the football field.
Exactly. When you have Travis Etienne, as a receiver against Boston College, that right there, that's how you generate value. So it's a little bit different at the college level, but I think, going back to your question, I would probably have to roll with Zeke because of those fumbles. I mean, it's been a really atrocious, and I think we need to see more Tony Pollard. I had this take before the year that he's going to be, kind of in the same situation as Todd Gurley was with the Rams. I think that's what's going to happen with Zeke, and it kind of blows my mind that I still don't understand how the front office allowed to let Byron Jones walk, but pay this man what they did. Yeah. Imagine if they kept Byron Jones this year. I mean, still, they would probably be bad with everything, but I mean, that's a pretty stark difference between the two, and so far as generating value.
Where are you taking Travis Etienne in the 2021 NFL Draft? What's the highest you'd take him?
Depends on the team, but I mean, if you're like a championship quality team, you have every single position filled, maybe the 3rd round.
Oh,
maybe
nice.
the third round.
I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
No, I'm not going first.
That was the same argument for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, if you have a championship caliber team, he's just that missing piece. Are you kidding? Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been good, but I'm not saying I think they would have been better off attacking another position. Even as bad as defensive rookies have been this year, adding talent at more valuable positions that make more money on their second contract is always the valuable decision in the first round. I think for Travis Etienne, I can get on board at the back end of the second. Okay, at the back end of the second. But if you're drafting Travis Etienne in the first round, I just don't see the value. As good as Travis Etienne is, and he's the best running back in this class. He was the best running back in the last year's class. I still don't think you're going to get enough value out of him if you draft him in the first round, as good as he is. All right, let's jump to the defense side of the ball. A couple of names here, and then we'll close out the podcast and talk to Benjamin Solak. Rookie corners have not been playing well. Rookie linebackers have not been playing astounding. Two names we'll bring up. We talked about Trevon Diggs a bit. Jeffrey Okudah had a better game this past week. Where are you at with rookie corners? Who do you feel confident in? Who do you not feel confident in? We're 8 weeks into the season now. What are some takeaways on this rookie cornerback class?
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see Trevon Diggs have the game he did on Sunday night ever again.
From a grading perspective,
yeah.
No.
I don't think he was our rookie of the week. He made the PFF team of the week. He had 2 good interceptions, but he did still get burnt on a couple of plays to Travis Fulgham. That first 32-yard catch he gave up, that was really, really bad. I'm not confident really in Trevon Diggs. I'm still holding out hope for Jeff Okudah just because of those physical tools. I mean, he was, he was Michelangelo's David at the cornerback position. If you crafted a perfect guy, that's him. But I have an intriguing question for you. Knowing what we know now, would you rather have Jeff Okudah or Jalen Johnson for the rest of their NFL career?
Jeff Okudah. Knowing what we know now, I'd still stick with Jeffrey Okudah because the tools are what's stable. The athleticism is what's stable. Performing well in press and performing well from a yards per coverage standpoint is descriptive, but not always as predictive as legitimate athleticism, size, length at the cornerback position. It's why traits matter. It's why, drafting is largely looking at the best athletes and taking them highly in the draft. That's why guys like Rashawn Gary go very high despite bad production, and other guys, you can mention 1,000 guys of that level. But Jalen Johnson has exceeded expectations, and I was a huge fan of him as well. I still think Jeffrey Okudah figures it out. I think he has, in my opinion, better tools and a better profile to be a shadow corner in the future, a guy that can follow guys into the slot and outside. He hasn't been that yet, but I think he has a better projection to do that. While Jalen Johnson, I think, will always be an outside corner that can't really be a shadow corner inside, has to play different coverage schemes and things. But I think Jeffrey Okudah over Jalen Johnson. And I apologize for saying that because I'm a big Jalen Johnson fan, but here we are.
I think it's, kind of, imagine going back in April and saying, middle of the season, we're having this conversation. Would you rather have Jeff Okudah or Jalen Johnson? Well, your mind would go so many different directions. Yes. What's going on with this? But yeah, overall, the cornerback class has not been that great.
Patrick Queen had a huge stop in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers late, and I thought it was really, really impressive. But overall, Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray, Jordan Brooks have not graded well, and all of them have played decent snaps so far this year. Jordan Brooks, probably the lower end of that. He's not a starter for the Seattle Seahawks, but with those 3 linebackers, the first thing I noticed with all of them is that they're just slow to the ball. They're not anticipating things or seeing things come through like they were at LSU or Patrick Queen or at Oklahoma. And the reason I say this is because Queen and Murray, the 2 best things they were good at is as soon as the ball was snapped, they're flying to it, firing off on the ball, really instinctive, really fast. However, we're not seeing that this year. I don't think you can really write the book or close it with Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray, but I think it's important to describe that this abbreviated offseason, no preseason football, has really impacted the play of rookie linebackers.
Yeah, and I thought this group of linebackers were a little bit overvalued. I thought teams were kind of attacking need a little too early and being a little too aggressive in that. But I had a little bit higher expectations than what they've been playing at right now. Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray, they both have had, one good game where we kind of thought maybe they're going to start to piece it together, and that hasn't been the case. So, I think it's kind of interesting that, Willie Gay Jr., it's been a very small sample, just over 100 snaps, but he's probably been the best off-ball linebacker in the class. And if you have to say, which off-ball linebacker and which cornerbacks impressed me the most, we've only seen L'Jarius Sneed for, a couple of games. But I would say it's been those 2. That's
where it comes back to development, though, man. The fact that Willie Gay was in position to make that play on play action behind his head, I put it on Twitter as a really impressive play, is development, in my opinion. The fact that L'Jarius Sneed was able to start as a rookie outside corner and play as well as he did, it's got to be development and coaching. Like that is not drafting well. I can't get on board with. And I liked Willie Gay as a prospect, but at a certain point, the coaches are putting these guys in a position to succeed, preparing these players for the big stage. You can't say the same thing about a lot of other franchises in the NFL right now. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the end of the podcast. You don't get that opportunity to listen to the Ben Solak interview that we had with him. But if you are listening, wherever you find your podcast, we're going to now jump to the Benjamin Solak interview. It's been great. Austin Gayle and Anthony Treash.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.